Good afternoon. Welcome. A call to order Guadalupe Center's annual corporate meeting, January 25, 2021. I like at this time call for a moment of silence for guidance and thanksgiving throughout the pandemic. For all those who have been affected directly and indirectly by this pandemic, both in illness and recovering, and yes, we too have been affected directly and indirectly by death of those we love close to us. And also that we continue to be blessed for this coming year, and in Thanksgiving for the cooperation, the hard work of our sponsors, our professional staff, our boards and volunteers, and all those others who wish us well by thought and action. And one moment of silence for our personal pledges, pleads that we may have personally. Amen.
Amen.
Mr. Medina, Chris CO, please.
Thank you, Mr. Rojas. I'd like to preface my comments. We're going to do the year in review, and this has been a year like no other for, I think, most of us. It started out, as a normal year, and a lot of excitement, of course, in the February, of course, the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl, and that in itself took over 50 years to get to happen. But in March, things turned, and they turned quickly. This was something that affected our center, our community, our city, the country, the world. And for 9 months of 2020, we had to change how we provided services. We had to modify programs. We had to eliminate some programs. But we looked at ways that we can continue our mission and yet serve those that were the most vulnerable, the ones that were in most need, to provide them critical programming during these 9 months. And in fact, as all of you know, it continues today. So it's not, it's an ongoing problem. We hoped eventually that this will change and it get better, but it's been a tough year. With that, we'll show the slides.
Where is it? I'm on it. Hold on. No, that's not it. It's right here. Okay, now I gotta get back to the screen. Oh, here, okay. This one right here.
They can't see you. So, Mr. Chairman, as you can see, that clearly our programming was affected drastically by this COVID virus. We're going to have more details as to the services that we provided and how we were able to provide those services through our facilities by both our COO and by our Director of Vice President of Social Services, Diane Rojas. And I'm not sure if you would like to do those at this time, or do you want to go on to the next item of business?
We lost track a little bit here. Do I want to do what at this time?
If we wanted to go into detail on the services that we were able to provide as a result of the COVID virus, and we can do it first with the family support programs that we provided, the direct assistance, some of the health screening, health immunizations, and then the modifications to the facilities to make that even possible. We can do that either way, or we can wait to the reports by those individuals.
We could go through the report, I believe, and still cover what you just mentioned.
Okay, that's fine. We'll do that.
Okay. We go to 9th and Van Brunt.
Okay. The 9th and Van Brunt soccer field. Back in June of 2020, I approached Gene Chavez, who's a local, Dr. Gene Chavez, who is a local historian, also has been involved in a lot of the archival information of Latinos and in particular Mexicans, not only in the Midwest, but also in the Southwest. Gene has worked and continues to work with the Smithsonian. In fact, he's done a number of projects with the Park Department, many which have been exhibited at their facilities. One in particular that dealt with baseball in the Mexican community of Kansas City, which had a lot of our archival history, the centers. And then he did one with softball in the Mexican American neighborhoods, barrios of the Midwest. He was a perfect choice for us to follow up and talk to in regards to doing history for the soccer, which was provided by, which was in fact in Kansas City was started by a lot of Mexican immigrants who were members of Our Lady of Guadalupe Catholic Church. Unfortunately, there was no documentation for this, and it's not acknowledged by the city. As a result, we asked Gene to do some work for us, which he did, and he has presented to the city, and there is support to naming the field, renaming the soccer field at 9th and Van Brunt. It's not what we initially asked for, but I think we've come to a compromise which will appease everyone. We have support from the surrounding neighborhoods associations, and the neighborhood that the park sits in, which is a Lycan neighborhood, also are in support, as well as the business community, the Truman Road CID. So with that, we've got a short video we're going to show you here. So it'll give you a little history and what we've been doing.
Kansas City soccer fans may take it for granted, but there was a time when most people in the area did not know much about the game. However, a vital factor of local history of soccer is rooted in Kansas City's Latino communities, with the history of the Guadalupe and Los Latinos soccer clubs.
My thoughts are that that is part of our history, and our history should not go unnoticed. And if this is part of the way that soccer is a very well-known sport today, but a lot of pioneers in the sport here.
The soccer legacy here began in the early 1950s by Mexican immigrants at Our Lady of Guadalupe Church in Kansas City, Missouri's West Side neighborhood. It was co-sponsored by La Unión Cultural Mexicana. Agustin Medina, better known by his nickname Chino, played a key role in helping to popularize the game of soccer. You love it. It was his life. It was his life. He had played professionally in Mexico for many years before immigrating in 1953 with his wife, Teresa, and their 2 children to her hometown in Kansas City, Missouri. When Chino Medina arrived, he looked for other people to play soccer and found the Guadalupe team. Other Latino players had migrated to Kansas City during this time.
Well, first of all, I got involved because when I was living in Mexico as a young kid, I used to play soccer every day. We didn't have soccer balls, we would play with anything, even cardboards. Balls that are made out of glue.
I think soccer is the one that keeps us together at that time. The team founder, Ignacio Orozco Sr., along with original players, Genaro Villanueva Sr., Charo Peregrina, were thrilled to add Chino to the team. The Guadalupe team grew into Los Latinos. Soccer had been growing in popularity among other immigrant communities in the region. Los Latinos team was not only playing in Kansas City, but in regional championships as well.
We used to get together and chip in and rent a bus, Greyhound bus, to go to Omaha. Back there they had a team.
So just imagine, you used to go all the way to Minnesota to play one game, and then they used to come and pay the visit. This is how soccer used to be right here in Kansas City. At home, they would play games regularly on Sundays at Gage Park in the West Side.
Yeah, we played every Sunday there. And whenever we had a tournament, we only had one field, and later in life, they built 3 or 4.
Later, they would play in Gillum and Swope Parks, which were some of the first makeshift soccer fields in the city. Today, their legacy is carried on at the 9th and Van Brunt soccer field, sponsored by the Guadalupe Centers Incorporated, where Ricky Olivares coaches Kansas City's next generation of Latino soccer players.
I knew that, if I could bring some of what I had learned through the major clubs, maybe we could have something special here. And, the fruits of our labor, came about last year as the boys won the Class 2 state title. It's in our blood, in our culture, for their parents to see them playing a sport that they grew up loving, as kids themselves, is something very special to me.
Soccer's been a big part of my life. Been playing it since I was like 9, I think. Yeah, so, it means a lot.
Yeah, I think soccer is great. It's a great escape. It helps you focus on school. It helps you focus on aspects of life. You just learn so much from it technically, mentally, culturally, and it's a fun experience, and I love it.
I never left soccer, you can tell, because I just keep on with soccer all my life.
It's in my heart, too.
Soccer served to bind immigrant communities together in the 1950s. The legacy of those early players continues today in the lives of young players who are learning the lessons of teamwork, sportsmanship, and community solidarity.
So that concludes that video, but we are at a point where the compromise we've come up with the park department is that the park be called International Park, and we name the field Guadalupe Los Latinos Soccer Field. The park board's ready to, the park staff is recommending that to the park board, along with the groups, ourselves, the center, the UCM, the Mexican Cultural Union, and the neighborhood associations that we had the letters of support. Okay.
Thank you, Chris. It brings back memories to me because I knew most of those guys there. And congratulations to Gino helping to put this together. Beto Lopez.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. I will pick up on what Chris was stating here a few minutes ago, as far as 2020 being a very different approach of how we operate and function here with the Guadalupe centers. I know the board of directors, we were able to update them on at least on a monthly basis, kind of what was going on throughout the year. And I guess a common theme is these virtual meetings like we're participating in now became very common last year. Obviously we're into them as we get into this new year, we're still doing the same thing. But from an operations perspective, we really had to deviate from original plans, as Chris indicated. Well, we had to become much more flexible. And as far as the facilities, our food department, and even the credit union, we were able to work very closely together with each other, and some of the other programs within the organization, such as our family support programs and our GES school system. And I know that Diane will give everybody more details on specific families and numbers of people that we served from our family support program. And then Mr. Palmer will probably update everybody about the schools. But as far as from an operations perspective, our teams just were hands down above and beyond. They went above and beyond their call of duty to make sure that this agency, as you can tell from your screen, the amount of people that we served was incredible. And it would not have happened had we not had a good team of staff and just unselfish people that made the year what it was, and as it's still kind of lingering on right now, obviously, but it made us as best as we could make it, not only for all the families and the children that we serve on a daily basis, but for our own teammates here. Our facilities team kept things very safe as possible, and followed all CDC and city guidelines, health department guidelines. And so we dealt with it, we got through it. But I'll highlight a couple other additional things that I think it's important for everybody to know. I guess along with what Chris was saying, you know, part of last year, given all the circumstances, the 9th and Van Brunt Park that Chris indicated as far as the naming rights or the name dialogue that he's had with the park department. It took us several months to convince the park board that we would be a good partner for them, not because of any concerns they had, but just sometimes during a pandemic year and sometimes dealing with government officials, it just takes a little longer to get things done. At the end of the day, I think it's a great partnership. We have a great agreement with the city and the park department specifically. Their board approved our contract unanimously, and they know we have a good history, a good track record of working with other park department facilities across the city, and specifically in the West Side neighborhood. So we're very happy about that for sure. And then just to give everyone an update, we estimated we have bids that cost about approximately $500,000 to replace the soccer turf that's there at that current location at that facility. We've raised approximately half of the amount that's needed to get that turf repaired or replaced. And we're working hard with the city as well through their PIAC program to get the remainder amount that we're optimistic that we hope to accomplish and obtain those funds here later this spring. And God permitting, later this summer and fall, you know, hopefully kids will be able to enjoy it and be outdoors again and enjoy this great complex. So that took quite a bit of our time. Also, as far as operations, you know, the administrative building on the west side had quite a bit of work done. A lot of it was cosmetic. We had some roof and water issues. All of those repairs were made, and thankfully they were all done under budget. And you know, given the pandemic, there's always concerns whether contractors would be available, and things got done in a timely fashion. Along with, we completed the library renovation project over at the VIA campus. That was also a big undertaking here during this COVID period. Thankfully, that project, a $3.3 million project, was completed on time and on budget. And we're very happy and pleased to share that with everybody. And then as far as lastly, you know, with our food service department, I think it's important to point out that, you know, given all the circumstances, we were able to stay flexible and nimble and just adapt to, you know, what was happening. We were able to serve, as you can see on the screen, you know, the same senior citizens that we serve on a daily basis. We were able to get those meals out. We had support, like I said, from all these different departments, volunteering to go door to door to take food to the seniors, to the families of our schools. And we're very proud of our staff again for helping us pull through this period. Challenging, but it all worked when you have good teammates. And as we head into this next year, I think it's just important for us. You know, we've learned a lot of how things, you have to be flexible and have multiple plans to be successful. I think all of you guys can relate to that in whatever you do on a regular basis, on a daily basis. You know, we're planning ahead. You know, we were able to still improve and upgrade a lot of our equipment for our kitchen, and our different kitchens. We will continue to do that here this spring and summer, and prepare to continue to grow our food department and our third-party catering opportunities. So, you know, we can sit back and just roll over and unfortunately, you know, be gloom and doom, but our attitude has been more positive and proactive. So we're optimistic, even as we continue to battle this pandemic, that we will survive and get ahead. So that's all I have for now, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I know that it's not been easy, as Chris mentioned, and all of us know that how our organization has been able to adjust to this unchanging times, the obstacles all of us have to deal with. Thank you again. But the credit union, while we're at it, Beto, please.
Yeah, my apologies. I alluded to them briefly on the beginning of my presentation. What I can tell you there as well is that the credit union, you know, one of the things, again, we pride ourselves on for everything that was accomplished in 2020 was that our agency never shut down. In the most difficult of times, when there was people quarantined and you know, we're trying to make adjustments on who physically we can allow into our spaces following CDC and city guidelines. The credit union was still able to grow, which is amazing. We were able to grow from approximately a $3.3 million in asset organization to just under $5 million in assets. And that's a testament to the hard work of our staff and the board. The credit union has its own separate board. And, you know, we, through, again, virtual meetings, we never missed a beat as far as leadership, having our monthly board meetings and staff carrying out their responsibilities and being available, making the services and products available to all of our members. So I'm happy to say that, given again all the horrible things of the pandemic, as a body, as an organization, we were able to grow our assets. So we're very, very proud of that. We implemented quite a bit of social distancing and COVID type safety procedures. And to this point, it's working. We've become more automated. We've somewhat encouraged a lot of our members to begin to use more ATM and online and phone application products. And it's been a big success. So again, very proud of the credit union as well, and all of the leadership involved with the board of directors. So I think that'll do it, Mr. Rojas.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Alex?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. From a fundraising perspective, last year was definitely one of a kind, which was the theme. We, you know, beginning in March, we had to immediately re-strategize our fundraising efforts and shift gears towards COVID-related funding, specifically emergency assistance, including food, housing, and utilities. Diane Rojas will speak more on that here in a little bit. Right at the beginning, we saw that there was so much support from our local foundation community, beginning particularly with the KC Regional COVID Response and Recovery Fund, which was a collaborative spearheaded by United Way, Greater Kansas City Community Foundation, and Mid-America Regional Council, and over 20 foundations and corporations. Since then, we have been awarded over $670,000 in COVID-related funding, again, primarily from our local foundation community. Overall, in 2020, we were awarded 74 grants, totaling $3.9 million in grants and contracts, with an 81% success rate, which compares to an 82% success rate in 2019. Additionally, our individual giving was up 66% at $15,000. So despite hardships, from a fundraising perspective, it was a pretty good year. On the special events side, it was different for sure. I know other organizations that host annual events saw the same thing. It was kind of devastating. Those events looked very different last year. The anticipated revenue was lost from many of those events. Some of them were canceled or held virtually, like our Cinco de Mayo and our Blanco y Negro. And some just didn't happen, unfortunately, like our golf tournament and our Thanksgiving Day luncheon, which, you know, even though those events were canceled, we were still able to provide the beneficiaries with those services, including the scholarships for the golf tournament awardees and Thanksgiving Day luncheons to our community. But because of COVID, we ended up kind of shifting gears and hosting different types of events, COVID-related community events, COVID testing sites, PP distribution events, and food distribution events, which I know Diane will speak more on during her presentation. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
And a very special thanks to yourself and your team, who I believe did an exceptional job. As we mentioned, other organizations are not fortunate to have benefit from the application you yourself made and how you applied yourself in spite of the obstacles out there. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Diane Rojas, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, and adding to following up with Alex's presentation.
Diane, yes, I want to, before, I'm sorry to interfere here. I think that our CEO mentioned earlier in the meeting that something about the COVID stuff. Perhaps maybe you could tie this in with him as you address that. So go ahead. And Chris, if you feel like you need to come in on this, following up on some report you were going to make, and tie in, I think it will probably be okay.
Okay, sure.
You
So,
agree with that?
okay.
Go
So,
ahead. You can start with distribution, the food distribution part of it.
sure. So I just wanted to say though, so 2020, when you think about in terms of, yes, it was an unprecedented year. Yes, it was challenging, but it was also successful. And the reason it was successful is because without such a resilient, caring, and unselfish staff, these services would not have been delivered. And we're talking about programming across the board for Guadalupe Centers and GES. So from a program services perspective, I feel that we were successful too in securing the funding that we needed to provide those services because of the reputation that we already had. We've always been good stewards of our funding. And with that being said, I think those numbers in terms of the funds secured reflect that. Specifically, with respect to services, we were involved obviously in many individual services for families that included food distribution, rental assistance, mortgage assistance, utility assistance. We continue to provide counseling through our substance abuse treatment program via Doxy platforms. With respect to the specific services, they were valued at over $376,000. And that number is especially significant because that's twice as much as that we would spend in a normal non-COVID year. Again, that's reflected in the number of unduplicated households that we served. Because if you think about it, that's 765 households that are comprised of an average of 3 to 4 family members. So we touched a lot of people with respect to delivering the services that they so needed. As was mentioned earlier, we had to pivot in terms of the way that those services were delivered, whether that be through food pantry, the actual drive-through, or delivery to the actual residents. We also made very important partnerships this year with Truman Medical Center, Heart to Heart International, and Congressman Cleaver's office, along with the Teamsters and Harvesters, to support 3 separate COVID testing events and also the food distribution events. So in terms of, making sure that we were, continuing business as usual, if you will, it just looked differently. That included in terms of making sure that participants who were interested in our workforce development products, specifically the transportation, distribution, logistics training, we were able to successfully graduate 10 participants. 6 of those actually attained and completed their CDLA, and 4 were awarded the forklift training certifications. I think too, in terms of being responsive to our partners, they have actually, they've seen that, we do what we say we're going to do. We are connected to the community. We can leverage and help the community access needed services. So we've been in recent discussions, as recent as last week, and are planning, along with Truman Medical Center, to now provide the actual vaccinations. And so we will be following up on that within the next week. They're hoping to provide at least 200 vaccinations on site at one of our facilities. It has not yet been identified, but that's what we are working toward. And again, I think it's because obviously Guadalupe Centers has long been trusted by the community, especially the Hispanic community. And so those partners are reaching out to us to make sure that we can help leverage and facilitate access to those services. Paul, did that help in terms of what you wanted about COVID related information?
Yeah, I think Chris might have something to add to it. I think he did make mention of part in the beginning of the meeting. Is that right, Chris?
Yeah, Paul, in terms of, we were at the forefront of providing services to the Latino community. When this pandemic first broke out, the foundation community, the business community, the health communities reached out to us because they saw us as the leader to provide services and outreach. And our family support program, Diane and her team did a great job of working to make that happen, as well as, our food and maintenance service, Bethel's team as well. So we were able to provide outreach, education, and actual services. So I'll just thank them for making it happen.
See, I know it's not easy to get the shot for whatever reasons. I personally have registered in about 3 or 4 different places, including the VA, of which I have to tell you, I'm not an active member with a VA because, fortunate for me, that I do have good insurance, but even they, it's not that easy, as I had communication with them today. So I look forward for our programs here at the center. We have a good, we do have a good outreach program that even though I haven't been able to get a shot at Truman Medical and other places. In fact, I got a email the other day from Truman Medical that they suspended the process at this time till further notice, I guess because of the absence of the medicine. But in any case, or whatever other reason it may be. But in any case, I guess, Diane, thank you very much for staying on top of this, and Chris, and all those who are working towards the outreach of those who want the shot will be able to get it, and I'm sure we'll address that. Thank you again. And go ahead with your report, Diana.
Well, stay tuned, Paul, because in addition to Truman Medical Center, I did fail to mention, we're also partnering with the Visiting Nurses Association, and they are going to specifically target folks over 65. So I think you might qualify under that one. And we'll make sure that we get that information out to everyone.
Yeah, because I'm not making short of it because one of my kids asked me, have you got your shot yet? I said, not yet, you know. And so I kiddingly said, I think they're working on the people who are 125 and over, and they'll get to me eventually. So my patience is good, and I know that something good will happen here down the road, and we will be able to reach all those, including myself. I told them, well, I'm closer to 90 than I am 85, so I'll fit in there somewhere. Thanks to everybody, and including you, Diane.
Thank you.
Does that finish your report?
That concludes my report.
Okay. Mr. Palmer, Superintendent.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. You know, this is, I was just thinking when I came in March of 2018, that was also the end of the first year when we were a full pre-K through 12th grade organization. That was the first year we had 5th graders. So, you know, the board charged me with really working hard on our instructional practices. And, you know, the bad thing about when COVID hit last March, we had just really turned the corner with our elementary instructional practices. That was where most of the need was actually. And then COVID struck, so we had to switch gears, and our teachers have done a really nice job, and our principals done a nice job with delivering that instruction virtually. Unfortunately, we came back in a blended model for pre-K through 5th grade, but now we are on pause simply because it's just so rampant. And there's a lot of cases, and we have chosen to be safe. And you know, Dr. Hammond, my HR director, is working closely, and also through Diane's team, not only with Truman, but other organizations to try to get our staff vaccinated. Children's Mercy is one. But as we look towards the future, I'll be working with our Board of Education this week. We have a meeting in the morning, but also a board meeting Thursday night to decide when we think we can bring back our pre-K through 5th graders in a safe manner. But also all year long, our middle school and high school, they have not been on campus at all. They have been all virtual. So, you know, I sit in on meetings twice a month with area school superintendents. But our community is a little different. You know, the Hispanic population is the highest ethnic group, so to speak, with regard to the virus, so we have to be a little extra cautious, and we want to move forward in a very conservative manner. But we've done, I'm really proud of what we've done with regard to technology. You know, we are what's called a one-on-one organization where every student has a device that they can take home with them. We've had our partners and some grants such as School Smart KC, Lean Lab, have stepped up to provide funding so that all of our families now have connectivity in their homes. So we're doing all we can instructionally, but it still does not replace being face-to-face with students where you're building relationships and looking them in the eye and knowing what kind of a day they're having and what we can do to support them. But everybody's working hard, and our departments have done a nice job working together. I want to give hats off to Diane's group, Beto's group, maintenance, food service, Ruchi's on the phone, Shannon with finance. Everybody's trying their best to work together to make this work. So hopefully we can all get vaccinated, and then we can start having discussions about bringing our kids back. So thank you to everyone for their support, and we look forward to marching on with regard to teaching and learning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer.
You're welcome.
Shannon? Are you on, Mr. Shannon?
You might be on mute.
Yeah, here, I'm on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pardon
So
me?
we're going to go just compare because we're not finalized the 2020 numbers. We're going to do a comparison of the budget for 20 to 21. Now, we'll preface this by saying the 20 budget due to COVID changed for different reasons, especially on the school side. And we'll talk about that more in a minute. But I broke it out between the school and then the Guadalupe Center. And the first slide here shows that the Guadalupe Center, we're looking at what was budgeted originally last year compared to now. We're looking at a decrease of about 700,000, and that decrease pretty much is reflective of the school catering intercompany revenue that we bring that we did not do in the spring, and it's been limited in the fall. But the bigger one is the summer school, which we did have a successful summer school. We did make a profit off the summer school. That's not the purpose, but we did not end up on the red on that. But the amount of money that we normally generate from the summer school was significantly less because we were not able to do the vast majority of in person. It had to be virtual, and the number of students participating was significantly down. If you go to the next slide. And it kind of holds true with the expenditures. We originally budgeted 8.9 million in 2020, and we're looking at almost a decrease of 800, or not 800,000. Well, yeah, it is 800,000. Apologies. And the big drop in that has to go to salaries. And again, for 2021, where we normally run a full-blown summer school, where we hire almost 100 part-time teachers, staff, the whole 9 yards, due to the uncertainty for this summer, we're going to model after what actually occurred, not what was budgeted for 2020. And so you'll see a significant drop in compensation. And then along with that too has to go with program supplies, where we're just not, some of the areas we're not fully operational. Again, going back to summer school, providing the number of meals that we were to the schools when it was fully operational and so forth. So that it kind of coincides with the drop in the revenues. I'm gonna go to the next slide. On the Guadalupe educational side, kind of the same scenario. We budgeted a little over 23 million. And for this year, we're looking at 21 million. And it's a significant, and we already experienced the cut. I will tell you where we made up for that cut had to do with the PPP loan, which also GCI did receive. The PPP loan on the school was 2.2 million, and we're in the process of getting the forgiveness on that. But that helped offset the reduction in the revenue that the schools experienced, which is a carryover into the 2021 year, because we're not really sure exactly how it's going to look for the calendar year. And the schools operate on a fiscal year. They already experienced a cut for their fiscal year, but we're uncertain about how that's going to look starting July 1st of 2021 for the next fiscal year. So we're being conservative in our approach there. Next slide. And again, the expenditures coincide with the revenues as far as reduction. The biggest reduction on the school side is transportation. Starting in mid-March, we shut the schools down. Therefore, they did not incur transportation, which is extremely costly. And then again, this fall, we've been almost zero to extremely minimal transportation costs. And again, the food service follows kind of hand in hand on that. So you see the reduction in expenses with the bulk of that happening in those two areas. And I think that's it. And so just a quick note, like I said, we did receive PP funding. On the GCI side, it was a little over 800,000. On the school side, it was 2.2 million. We're in the process of forgiveness. I just got a notification today that GCI, it looks like it's, we're waiting on UMB just to sign off on the document. They've approved all our paperwork. On the school side, we're still awaiting that. And then with round two, unfortunately, the schools do not qualify. However, GCI does qualify, and we've applied for that. And if we do receive that, it will be an additional 800,000 that will come this spring for the 2021 year.
Good deal.
That's the end of my report.
Yeah. Thank you. At this time, I'd turn it over to Linda Clark to make a report on this terms and renewal. You with us, Linda?
I wasn't, I wasn't ready, Paul.
No? Okay,
To report on what now?
this is the board members.
I've got to find
Renewals
it.
of state of- I think the last 3 pages of the, I can read them off.
Please do. I'm sorry. I wasn't prepared.
The following is a slate of new nominations and term renewals for GCI Board Directors and Officers for 2021 by the Guadalupe Center's Nominating Committee. 3-year term renewal. Kevin Pringer, Leo Prieto, Linda Clark, Anthony Carreño. The slate of officers, Chairman Paul Rojas, First Vice Cece Rojas, Second Vice Chair Tony Carreño, Treasury Steve Busser, Secretary Linda Clark. And that concludes this meeting. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn and take a little break before we move on to our next meeting.
I move to adjourn. This is Cece Rojas.
Thank you. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We'll take about a 5-minute break. Take about a 5-minute break, and then we'll return to proceed with business at hand.